All right, time now to take a look at what's grabbing headlines here in France. And Florence Filomeno joins us.
Hey, Will.
A big debate, especially after Harvey Weinstein scandal in the U.S., sexual assault, and L'Humanité sounding the alarm about the workplace.
Indeed, because tomorrow is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence against Women. And so L'Humanité is taking this opportunity to sound the alarm. And the statistics are alarming, it must be said. A quarter of assaults happen in the workplace. 10 rapes a day, according to the statistics in L'Humanité. So 10 rapes a day in the workplace. 20% of French women say that they have been the victims of sexual harassment at least once during their professional careers. Now, we just saw the front page there. It says when, essentially, the time to act is now when it comes to violence against women.
These numbers are staggering. You wouldn't think that 10 a day would be possible, especially in a country the size of France. But the paper also looking at some specific sectors where it might be more prone to have these assaults.
Indeed, we got a sneak peek at that article there. Inside L'Humanité, L'Humanité says that, the hotel and restaurant industry or risks or sectors that are particularly risky. Women face a threat not only from their hierarchy, colleagues, but also clients. They're working in closed spaces, kitchens, hotel rooms, etc. And they're often working on precarious contracts, which means that they are reluctant to speak up, essentially, because they don't want to lose their jobs. That's true for women working in the hotel industry, restaurant industry, but for all women in general. About only 5% of women actually take legal action after they've been assaulted. Now, L'Humanité reports on the fact that several trade unions are trying to address this problem, and that actually involves doing some soul searching for these trade unions because male dominance and sexism are prevalent in the workplace in general and also in the culture of French trade unions.
Yeah, and on that note, earlier this month, hundreds of women wrote a letter to Emmanuel Macron calling on him to implement an emergency plan against sexual violence. And tomorrow, the French president going to give a big speech on the issue, outlining the government's response.
And Le Parisien interviews 5 women who have been particularly active on social media, and they're going to be paying very close attention to what the president has to say. You can see these 5 women. Essentially, they've launched petitions online about all sorts of things. For instance, the age of consent, against a tribute to the filmmaker Roman Polanski, another one in favor of training police officers. You can see here, Aujourd'hui en France, Le Parisien saying, if you put all these petitions together, the 5 of them have gathered 700,000 signatures in France, which is huge. And they're going to keep putting the pressure on the president with a social media campaign that's starting today, in fact, under the hashtag Soyez au rendez-vous, which essentially means don't let us down, don't fail us, you have to be up to this task. They're asking for nothing less than a plan hors sec. Now, a plan hors sec is a national emergency plan that's usually used for major catastrophes, and they want this in the fight against sexual violence against women.
And some of Macron's plans have already been leaked to the press. Among other things, the government wants to make it easier for women to take action after they've been assaulted.
That's right. I was telling you that only 5% actually take legal action. Well, 80% of women just don't do anything at all because it's a real ordeal, according to, you can see in this cartoon here. For instance, filing a complaint with the police is really tricky in France. Even though Le Monde says the police has made a lot of efforts, there's still a prejudice and assumptions, essentially. And it's also an administrative nightmare. You can see this cartoon here saying, look, if it's a sexual assault, then you go to Bureau B103. If it's rape, you go to Bureau C46. So you can see this is...
You don't have to have the cold government response, do you?
Indeed. And the government is actually considering having part of the process be online, essentially to make it easier for the victims.
And not everyone is happy about the change of culture that's underway here in France. Critics say it could lead to a culture of slander as well.
A culture of denunciation. If we take a look at the front page of L'Opinion, you can see they've twisted the French motto, Liberté, Égalité, Dénonciation. A culture of denunciation is rearing its head in France, according to L'Opinion. This has been amplified by social media. It's being used by the state for common good, and it's becoming institutionalized. And this kind of culture exists in other countries, Switzerland, Germany, the UK, the US, Canada, and it's arriving here in France, and it's shaking up our Latin traditions, according to L'Opinion. And what makes it such a tricky thing here in France is that it reminds a lot of people of a very dark chapter in French history during World War II, the Vichy regime, when people essentially ratted out their neighbors, Jews, resistance. And so in this cartoon here, you can see Emmanuel Macron and Marianne. Marianne represents the French Republic, and you can see her peering out the window there with a pair of binoculars, ready to rat out her neighbors, I guess.
All right, well, let's end on something completely different. A word on tennis. The final of the Davis Cup starting today. France is taking on Belgium.
That's right. 3 years ago, France lost the final to Switzerland. So will France win this time round? Well, according to L'Humanité, Team France is wound up and ready to win and favored to win as well. And if France wins, it will be the 10th time they've won the Davis Cup since they started participating in 1904. Belgium, on the other hand, has never won. Now, Le Figaro takes a closer look at this kind of love affair that exists between France and the Davis Cup. True passion, according to Le Figaro, and you can see this vintage photo of Yannick Noah, so the current coach of Team France, when he was part of the team that won in 1991. So perhaps he'll bring a little bit of that luck to France this time around.
We'll have to wait and see. Florence Villomino with a roundup of what's making the French maple. She'll be back a little bit later with a look at the international headlines. That's it for now. Please stay tuned. More headlines coming up in just a moment.